My friend shaved my head while I was blackout drunk to support his relative with cancer. Now his family is begging me not to press charges because he was off his meds. Posted by you/Don't Call Me Baldy. For context, a relative of what used to be a close friend of mine, whom we'll call Gary for this story, contracted cancer. I, 26M, was sympathetic and even contributed $100 to a donation pool for their treatment. But one day, Gary came to me, took off his hat, and revealed a freshly shaven head. He told me that everyone in his family was doing it in support of his relative, as were many of our mutual friends. Then he asked me to join in. I told him I didn't want to shave my head because I like my hair. My hair is black, regularly combed, and well styled. He said I could just get a wig or something, and had actually brought his shaver kit. He was unboxing it when I told him this was not happening. I don't even really know his relative, so I'm not doing it. End of discussion. He called me some choice words and left angrily. We didn't speak for a week. Then, last Saturday, I got invited to a party at another close friend's house. There, I found out that Gary had tried the same thing on several other friends, and only a couple of them actually shaved their heads. Gary wasn't at the party, so I had a blast hanging out, playing video games, and listening to rock music. But I had way too much to drink and couldn't drive home. They said I could just sleep upstairs. I passed out on a bed, and it was a blissful sleep until I was shaken awake by another friend, who told me Gary had shown up late and that they caught him shaving my head while I was passed out. I saw what I looked like in the mirror and wanted to scream like I was in a horror movie. Gary even shaved off one of my eyebrows. Gary was still there, acting proud of himself, saying, "Now you're gonna have to shave off the rest, just like me." LOL. I was furious and called the cops. When they arrived, Gary fully admitted to what he had done and even said he was justified. The police didn't seem to think so, as this is classified as a form of assault. They asked me if I wanted to press charges, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Hell yes." Gary cussed me out while they took him away in cuffs. I tried getting my hair restyled into something presentable, but there was no saving it, and now I'm bald too. Now, a bunch of Gary's family members are telling me to drop the charges because Gary was off his meds and didn't mean to do it. I was like, what the F do you mean he was off his meds, because I never even knew he was on meds. But I still refuse to drop the charges. It'll take months for my hair to grow back the way it was. But all the calls and messages from Gary's relatives are starting to get to me. Just about everyone else in our friend group has cut Gary off, though, and they say I'm doing the right thing by not dropping the charges. So, am I the jerk for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? Relevant comments. Commenter. You could have talked to him instead of immediately calling the cops. I would definitely not want to be your friend. Though, if he kept being a jerk, then maybe press charges. Ops response. You think we didn't try to talk to him? He kept insisting that what he did was right. I was mad as hell, so I called the non-emergency number for the police. And Gary was so convinced he was in the right that he actually waited around for them. He spent that entire time gaslighting me and making fun of me. Commenter 2. You're honestly such a jerk for refusing to shave your head. When my friend had cancer, I shaved mine without hesitation to support them. That's what real friends do. The fact that you wouldn't do something so simple for someone battling cancer just proves you're not a real friend. It's just hair, it grows back, but your support could have meant everything to them. Ops response. The fact that you arbitrarily think I should have shaved my head for someone I don't even know is stupid. Do you think I don't know people who have had cancer? A friend of mine's grandmother literally had to have her breasts removed in the 90s due to breast cancer. She's still hanging in there. And from what I know, no one really needed to shave their heads for her back then. I donated $100 without question to the cancer fund of someone I don't even know. I can understand if you called me a jerk over the police, but don't act like I'm a jerk for not wanting to shave my head. Commenter 3. You didn't hear the clippers? You didn't feel your face being shaved? I have a bridge to sell you if you believe that. Ops response. I was really passed out from heavy drinking. They had to shake me hard just to wake me up, and loud music was playing for half the night. Have you ever been so drunk that you passed out so hard it was actually difficult to wake up? That's happened to me many times. Op adds an edit to his post. I want to make something clear here. So many people have said things like, dude, it's just hair. But would they all be saying that if I weren't a man? What if I were a woman with hair that took years to grow? Would they be saying the same thing? Sure, hair grows back, but it takes time. If it were something that grew back fast, people would be less inclined to care. But it's not fast. It takes months, and for some who had long hair, years. That's a lot of time wasted growing. And I don't plan on pushing for Gary to go to prison, but I don't plan to drop the charges either. His family already bailed him out. While I didn't know he was on meds, I did know he had quite the temper and even an entitled attitude at times. One example was a lunch where he wanted us all to combine the check and split it evenly. He got the most expensive thing on the menu. I got a cheeseburger. When we all said no, Gary went off on us for not being good friends. He's always been a jerk when he doesn't get his way, and I've only known him for about 3 years. This incident was the last straw not just for me but for a lot of our mutual friends. As for the charges, I don't want to send Gary to prison, but I would like him to get some therapy and community service. With the way Gary has acted around me in the past and what he did to me, I actually wonder how long it would have been before he got more violent. I've seen and heard of him getting into fights for less. Edit 2. I've gotten many comments from people saying, "You're the jerk, he has cancer." If you actually read what I posted, Gary is not the one with cancer, a relative of his, whom I don't even know, is. And no, I don't know what kind of cancer. Gary didn't elaborate. He wanted me to shave my head for this person, and when I refused, he left in a tantrum, then shaved my head while I was passed out drunk at a party. Update 1 year later. A friend of mine showed me a video yesterday in which my old post was read. Honestly, I had nearly forgotten about it since I was only there to ask if I was the jerk or not. And since I don't want to go through the pain of trying to do an update on that subreddit, I thought I'd just do it here since entitled spells out Gary pretty well. Other than the shaving incident, he tried to get us to partially pay for his food multiple times by combining the check and dividing it equally, even though he always ordered the most expensive thing on the menu. Once, he even pulled the "I forgot my wallet" bit. He was described as a neckbeard by multiple people, including women he flirted with. He tried to get a married neighbor, who was older than him, to have an affair with him and later egged her apartment door when she refused. I only learned about that a couple of months after my original post, and no, Gary never faced any consequences for it. I also found out he stole several video games and DVDs from friends, mooched food and drinks from their fridges, and even went through a period as a squatter for 2 months by refusing to leave a house he'd been let into by a former tenant. The landlord actually paid him to leave. Gary is also an extreme hypocrite who contradicted himself more than a corrupt politician. For example, 1 minute he'd be anti-vax, and the next, he'd be complaining about other people who weren't getting the COVID vaccine. Pretty sure he never got it either. I can't believe I ever had any sympathy for this man. Editor's note, recap the original post here, I cut that part out. Gary's family harassed me and tried to make me drop the charges. Not only did I refuse to drop the charges, but I also reported the harassment to the police. The only problem was that it didn't bloody stop. In fact, it got worse, mainly from Gary's mother, and I can see where Gary got his charming personality from. She showed up at my apartment a couple of weeks after the shaving incident to scream at me, saying that I knew nothing about what they were going through and that a little hair wasn't a big deal. I told her my hair was a big deal to me and that what Gary did was inexcusable. Well, that earned me a slap across the face, followed by a swift kick to the nuts, and then a few more kicks to my body after I went down. It was all recorded by a camera I had watching the front door. The landlord wouldn't let me install a Ring doorbell cam. One of my neighbors saw her and screamed at her that they'd be calling the police. Gary's mom ran, and I ended up in the hospital with minor injuries, mostly just bruises, a black eye, and a sore groin. Gary's mother was arrested, and I filed a lawsuit against her for attacking me. I saw her in court twice, once for her assault on me and once for the lawsuit I filed against her for the assault. This woman had taken several self-defense classes over the years, so she knew how to fight. That led the judge to consider her a trained individual, and she was sentenced to 6 months in jail, given 2 years of probation, and ordered to pay my medical bills. She actually cried to the judge about the money, but he wasn't having it. It took some time before I saw her in court again for my lawsuit against her, as she was out of jail by then. I was awarded $10,000 for the harassment, emotional damages, and lost work hours, and she had to pay all court and lawyer fees. She cried about that too, saying she didn't want to pay anything to the man who had ruined her and her son's lives. But she had no problem paying when it came to both court cases. Around that time, I heard that Gary's relative with cancer had passed away. I don't know any details, just that they passed. I admit that was sad, but I never knew this person. Gary, however, had made their condition his hill to die on when he tried to make an example out of me. He ended up with probation and community service for what he did to my hair. He cut contact with our entire friend group and eventually moved away. Where to? I don't know. I don't care either. As for my hair, well, it grew back just fine. It took nearly half a year to get it back to how it was. My boss had me put out of sight for a while, and I wore a hat everywhere for at least a month. I did take that $10,000 from the lawsuit and combined it with my savings for a down payment on a house. So I've since moved into a much better place. I also have a girlfriend now who's living with me. It was a bit soon for her to move in, but there were extenuating circumstances. We're making it work, though, and I'm happy. Relevant comments. Commenter. Here's the thing, as a man, you may be reluctant to fight back against a woman, but she's no lady either. Don't ever just let someone slap and kick you because you refuse to fight back. Also, did the mother shave her head? Op's response: no, she didn't shave her head, unless she was wearing a wig, which I doubt. I don't know how many people in Gary's family did shave their heads because his mother was one of the only relatives I saw in person after the shaving incident. Otherwise, all the harassment was online and over the phone. And yes, I was reluctant to strike back, but that old woman was faster than she looked. And that shooting pain from being kicked in the nuts is something I never want to feel again.